All right, here's what we're doing today. We did the shock yesterday. So we've got that K-Tech Razor R Lite, sprung properly for my weight. I've got the setup pretty good, got the sag dialed in. The next weak link in the chain is not the front forks per se. The damping is where it's kind of light. So that's where we're gonna go to a step thicker oil. So the stuff that's in there now is like 2.5 weight. I saw Dave Moss recommended 7.5. I picked up a couple bottles of fork oil. I'm gonna try to basically, once I get that oil out of the forks, and that's what we're gonna cover today, I'm gonna see if I can determine roughly the viscosity, and I wanna basically double the thickness. So I got a bottle of down there Bell Wraith, 7 weight and 10 weight. The problem is fork weight is not universal. If it's between manufacturers, 5 weight from one could be 20 from another, and so on. So the stuff that's in there is almost like water. So I'm thinking the 7 weight will probably be fine. The reason I'm doing this is because the damping is just not great. It's okay, but if you push it hard and you're a heavier guy, I had to turn up rebound all the way and then the compression up all the way just to get it kind of like, okay, I feel like this is adequate or safe for street riding, but it's not optimal by any means. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna drop the forks. We'll go through what you need to do. First of all, you need a front stand that will actually go and pick the front end up. I had other front stands that would go into the fork legs, which is fine if you're just removing the tire, which is part of this process, but it supports it by the bottom of the forks. We have to take the forks off. So here's what we're gonna do. First of all, you need to go get a center stand. Normally I get Pitbull, that's just what Cycle Gear had. It's trackside, it was on sale for $100. It is steel, it seems pretty strong, so I wouldn't try sitting on the bike while, using that, but it should hold the bike up fine. What we're gonna do is that's gonna go in underneath there. Now the thing that sucked was that it didn't have the right size pin. The biggest pin was 20 millimeters. It needs a 27. Well, a spark plug socket slips over pretty snug the pin that goes, I found one of the 6 sets of pins that this thing came with. So one of them slid up inside a socket, which is 26.5 millimeters. So should be close enough. I'll get it up there, see how stable it is. If I've got the rear and Pitbull rear stand, if I feel like there's any danger, I'm gonna put my floor jack underneath the bottom as well. So I'll order the pin in the meantime. I didn't want to hold it up waiting a week for a pin. So that socket will go up inside, that will lift it up. What I'll need to do then, and here's what you'll need to do, is take off the front fender. I've already taken the 4 bolts, two here, 2 on the other side, and then these cables and things will pop out of the way. So you can see how that is working its way out. So do that all the way around, pop these out, pop the other brake line out. This will come out first, which I think is better because when this thing goes in there, it kind of rests on that. And just to avoid scratching this, I would take this off first. 4 bolts, pop these rubber grommets out, take that off. What you'll want to do then is, just like you're changing your tire, you're going to want to loosen the pinch bolt and loosen this. Don't loosen it that much, just break the tension because you don't want to be putting tons of pressure. I don't like doing it when it's up on a jack. I would also loosen these just a little bit, both sides, and then so once this comes off, loosen those, loosen the pinch bolt, loosen the axle. We're going to lift it up, loosen the axle all the way. We're going to slide the wheel out, the axle out, and the wheel is going to come off. At that point, the only thing holding the forks in, pinch bolts, pinch bolt on each side. What I will also do is take whatchamacallit, digital caliper, zero it out, and I'm going to measure what that depth is. So we're looking at 8.38 millimeters on that side. I'll make sure they're equal. And looks like we've got 8. So it looks like they're not even equal. So it looks like from the factory the forks are slightly off. So we're going to split the difference. That's 7. That one's 8. And we're gonna assume both are 8. So I'm going to remember that. Write that down. Find a place. Make sure you're measuring from the same spot on either side. Just pick a spot, mark it with a Sharpie. on both sides. Check it, 8.3. If I go to the front, 8.5. Okay, so we're going to settle back when we come back in. We're going to settle right around that 8, 8.25, somewhere in there. Just make sure they're both even. What you'll also want to do is I would take out all the preload, because once we get this off, we're going to wrap it in a rag and clamp it in the vise so we don't scratch it. And we're going to need to take the cap off. And that's all we have to do. We're not doing valving here. Once this fork is dropped, and once I get the wheel off, we'll resume the video and I'll come back and show what we're going to do next, even though I'm already saying that now. But what we're going to want to do is this, that's your rebound. I'm just going to leave those where they are. And what I'm going to do is take out all the preload once the fork is out, and I'm going to count how many rotations so I know how many to put back in. The reason you want to take that out is with it compressing the spring, and this is what's holding that adjuster in place. When you do loosen this, you want to get that cap off. You don't want this thing to go poof and smack you in the forehead and tattoo that into your forehead or go flying across the room. So you want to take all that spring tension out. So once we get the wheel off, we get everything set, we're going to loosen all of that. And then also I would, while this is clamped in here and not going anywhere, I don't know if that's a 19 mil or a 17 mil, whatever that is, just loosen that a little bit. That's the nut for the cap. You want to loosen it so that, again, it makes it easier once it's off. You have basically a vise here holding it in place. So that's what we're going to do. I think we covered everything. Fender, hoses, loosen the calipers, loosen the axle, jack the thing up on the stand. I'll show you what it looks like when it's on the stand. And then we're going to go ahead and remove the calipers, remove the axle, remove the wheel, take out all the preload, take out, just break the seal basically, loosen it a quarter turn, and then we're going to loosen the pinch bolts, and we're going to drop a fork. At that point, what we're going to do is we're going to take the fork cap off, and you're going to basically let all the oil drain out into a graduated cylinder. I cannot for the life of me find mine. So I've got an empty from an older bike that had heavier weight oil. Cleaned it out. I'm going to use this to capture so I can see exactly how much oil comes out, and then I'm going to mark it with a Sharpie, and that's how much oil is going to go back in. So that's what we're going to use. Be better if a graduated cylinder, but if I measure it precisely, I'm going to be within a milliliter or two. It's not going to make a difference. And then we're going to go in with the heavier oil. So I'll show you what you need to do once we get this off. So stay tuned for a minute. We'll be right back. All right. We've got it up on the jack, or stand, lift, what do you want to call it. So we're good there. Seems stable. So also remove the ABS sensor. When you take the caliper off, you need to get this off because this is coming out of the bike. So what we're going to do now, we've already taken, I'm going to recheck my measurements up here so we make sure we get the fork set at the right height when we come back. I'm going to take out the preload, which is the black part right there. Take out all the preload, and I'm going to loosen that cap a tiny bit. I'm going to take the fork out. I'm going to drain it. When you drain it, when you just pour it, it's not all going to come out. I'm hoping that fan isn't blowing on the damn microphone. So what we're going to do here is, once that cap comes off, we're not taking the valving out. We're not doing anything else. We're just going to take it up like an inch. Get a gap in there, and we're going to pour that oil out into my receptacle over here. And then I'm going to pump the fork up and down just to make sure we get as much of that stuff out as possible. And that's when we're going to take a measurement as accurately as we can, mark it with a Sharpie, and then we're going to fill it back up with that exact same amount of the heavier oil. Put it all back together, put the fork in, set the height, tighten the pinch bolts, which is behind there, and 2 down here, and then we'll work on the other fork. Be back in a moment. Okay, here's what we're doing now. I've loosened the cap. In fact, I got it clamped in the vise. However, taped it off with some cardboard, or if you got pieces of wood or plastic guards. See how that now, when I push this up, that comes up. So that's how we're going to drain the oil out. So I'm going to pump it upside down. I'm not going to be able to hold this while I'm doing this. That's how we're going to pour our oil out, get as much of it as we can into this thing that has been thoroughly cleaned out. We're going to then measure off exactly how much came out, and then we're going to put an equal amount back in of the new thicker oil. So that's what we're doing now. So got it off the bike, loosened it, and now I can drain it. Well, that's what we're doing. All right, so what I found was when I drained it, We got around a little, just a scooch over 400 milliliters, but trying to pour it into this bottle, I spilled some out. Based on the amount that's spilled, we're gonna go with 425 milliliters. So I'm gonna mark that with a Sharpie. The question now is, do I go with 7 weight or 10 weight? I think 10 might be a little too heavy. This stuff that came out was pretty watery, so, and I guess we could take it in steps, do a little bit at a time. We'll start with the 7 weight. 425 milliliters of that, pour it in there, work it through, put the cap on, put my preload back in and install it on the bike, and then we'll do the other one, and then we'll see what shakes out. I think that the 7 weight is going to be fine. The stuff that came out was pretty watery. I think it's 2.5 or 5 weight, so that should be ideal. We'll save the 10 and just in case it's not enough and we need to go a little thicker. So that's what we're going to do, 425 milliliters. All right, everybody. Got everything back on, drained out, put in the appropriate amount, which again, I don't have the measurements from the shop manual, so I got out all the oil that I could, and so whatever came out, that's what went back in, you know, within a milliliter or two. So forks are back in, set them at the 8.5 millimeters we checked at before. I'll re-put in my preload, caps are all tightened, pinch bolts are all torqued properly. And so now I need to put the fender in and then put the wheel on, connect the speed sensor and the calipers and tighten everything up. And at that point, I'm going to start bouncing on it, checking it, take it for a test ride and see how it feels. I started with the 7 weight, just looking at the oils. I didn't want to go too thick and have it be stiff and harsh or anything like that. So I'm just going to take it in increments. Went to the 7 of the Bell Ray. Don't know what that means compared to what's in their stock. It looked a little thicker, just the way that it sloshed around. So maybe that'll make the difference. It didn't need a ton. It wasn't like, oh, this is complete crap. It just was a little, it just didn't slow down enough. Going down was not as controlled and coming up was just a little springy with all the preload in. I'm sorry, all the rebound. So I just wanted it just make it a little more like that, like the other bikes are. So let me get this all buttoned back up, get it back together. That'll take about 10 minutes. And then I'm gonna start bouncing on it, recheck the sag and do all that fun stuff. And we'll see where we're at, see how we feel. If that isn't enough, if it doesn't really feel like it made a difference or it's not enough of a difference, I've got a full bottle of 10 and I'll just have to suck it up and spend another hour doing the whole damn thing over again. So now that I've done it once, it'll be quicker next time. This time took me about an hour and a half. I can get it done in an hour going forward. Let's see what we'll be back in a moment. All right, we're back. Got the wheel on, got the brakes, everything's tightened up, wheel sensors. One thing I noticed when I went to reset the sag was that I had 35 mils of sag. Now, I did account for how much oil came out and how much spilled, and I added just a little bit more. So that may have adjusted the air gap by a couple millimeters. Frankly, I'm okay with that. So in order to get back to 40 millimeters of sag, I had to take out 3 turns of preload on each side. I've left compression and rebound kind of where it is because it actually feels really good. It's not quite as taut as those, but I don't want the ride to be quite as taut, but it's better than it was. That was with Bell Ray 7 weight. I probably could have gone to 10 weight and then taken out some of the adjustments. And so in the future, if I have to do this again, I probably will go with the 10 weight. So knowing that the 7 feels kind of like what I wanted, and it matches the back, I think I'm just going to leave it for now. But if I do this again, I'll use the 10, and that way I can back off the clickers a couple clicks, get 2, 3, 4 clicks out from full, and that'll give me some adjustability over time as viscosity, may lose over time. So this is my starting point. It feels okay. I'm not going to go through the trouble at this point to drop the forks and do it all over again just to get slightly thicker. We'll do it in steps. Next time I have to change, if I feel like losing the viscosity in a year, I'll go ahead and put the 10 weight in and readjust the clickers. I think though, in putting just that little bit of extra oil, it adjusted what they think of as the air spring, so the air gap. So I'm okay with that because it's actually making it harder to bottom out. There's been times where if I really banged on the front, I've got the zip tie as the adjust. It was getting down to where it's almost bottoming out. So this feels like it's harder to do that. So I think this is good. This is a good starting point. So I'll put all these videos together, kind of splice them together and stuff, and try to make this somewhat coherent in a little bit, and then throw it up online for anybody that's looking to do this. But so far, Bell Ray 7-weight, I'm a bigger, heavier guy. I probably could have gone away with a 10. If you're a little bit lighter, maybe you're 180, 190, 200 pounds, and you just want it a little bit more damped, the 7-weight Bell Ray, which is available at any cycle gear and Amazon here in the States, may be the trick for you. If you're a bigger, dare I say, fatter guy like myself, I'm not fat, I'm festively plump, you probably go up to the 10. In retrospect, I probably should have just done the 10, but I didn't want to go too much and have to worry about not being able to back out the clickers enough and having the front, hard as a rock. So, it's trial and error. I'm willing to do it and spend some time if it helps myself and thereby helps my channel and other people doing this. So if you like this stuff, like and subscribe, but that's a good start. That should give you an idea of what it takes. The biggest thing is really just having the stand and having the goddamn right size pin, so you don't have to tape a socket to the end to get that to the 27 millimeter for Kawasaki. I'm gonna go on Amazon or Cycle Gear and see if I can order the proper pin, but it did work. It wasn't going anywhere. The pin goes up, like, it's not like, oh, it's just sitting in the end here. It went up to about here. So you had a lot of overlap of steel. It was fine, but I do want to get the right pin. But in a pinch, necessity is the mother of all inventions, or something like that. So that's what I had to do. Anyway, hope it helps you guys, and I'll give a ride report later on.